Good morning. You guys have to excuse me. This is my morning voice. But I'm up and I'm here and early here with you for an episode of Kings Speak. I'm really excited about this one. Kings Speak is something that I put together in order to give men the space to talk about things that I feel like they generally don't talk about, like emotional intelligence, brotherhood, vulnerability, and different ways that men show up in the world so we can get some insight, learn, and grow on this good day. So today we have an amazing guest joining us. I see him here. I'm about to bring him in. He's an amazing actor who's done tons of projects, but I know him from Netflix #1 series, Sweet Magnolias, as he played Harlan Bigsby, and his name is Frank Oakley. Let me bring him in. How's my lighting? What are we doing?
Hey,
Hi, how are you?
pretty
Oh, there you
good. How you
go.
doing?
From Zoom to IGTV.
Right.
Oh, so good to see you. I'm so glad you made time for us this morning.
Oh, of course.
Well, it's morning for me. It's afternoon for you. I had
Yeah,
to
that time
apologize.
difference, man.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, this is my morning voice, y'all. You're the first people I'm talking to.
Man,
So I'm
never.
really excited to have this conversation with you because we briefly chatted about vulnerability when we were talking about Sweet Magnolias, which if you guys have not seen the show on Netflix, please take the time. It's very bingeable. There's 10 episodes and cliffhanger at the end, so you don't want to miss that. So how are you doing today anyway?
Pretty good, pretty good. Got my little workout in and got my little protein smoothie going. So a pretty good start to the day. I can't complain.
You're living. I'm behind. I'm trying to get like you. Okay. So today's topic is vulnerability. We touched on it, and I thought it'd be good to expound on it with you because it seems to be something in alignment with the journey that you're on. And I just have a feeling, that you've got something to share that I feel men and women can glean from, but that men can, understand. And before we start talking about vulnerability, I wanted to preface it with the definition, which is the quality or state of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed, either physically or emotionally. So, this is a tough one, especially because we live in a day and age where looking like we have it all together is the way to
hmm
go. We got to show up perfect. We need to know it all. So, what do you think? Like, what does vulnerability mean to you and in the life of a young man?
Yeah, so for me, it really kind of just comes down to one word, and it's transparency. Um, I'm learning in real time right now that being emotionally transparent is what's helping me open up that key to vulnerability. And I think like I do believe it's levels to it, and there's no way to tell how many levels to it by any means. But I think the more that I grow and learn and get older, I tap into different levels and deeper levels of vulnerability. Um, and I also feel like that to me, it's being like there are things that are sensitive and private, and you want to keep those to yourself. You want to use discretion, but having intentional community or friends or family that you can go to, and they're allowed to be in your business like that, but not just be in it to like talk stuff or just beat you down, but actually challenge you in ways that other folks won't be able to challenge you, and kind of like that iron sharpening iron metaphor.
Yeah, no, that makes good sense. And as you're talking, the word that keeps popping up in my mind is discernment. You got to have
Hmm.
discernment about those type of people that you decide to let in your business. And if it's going to
Absolutely.
be iron sharpening iron, you got to make sure they're iron too and that their ideals and values line up with who you are. So
Hmm.
that way you're not opening yourself up to be emotionally harmed by someone who's not on your level.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why do you think it's important, like not only for us to be vulnerable, but also specifically in brotherhood with guy friendships?
So I think with dude friendships, it literally, if you're open to, letting it affect you in that way, it's literally breaking the cycle of what we're taught, whether black, white, or otherwise, what you're taught, what a man's supposed to be. But I think even more specifically with black men, I mean, I'm a black man, so that's the perspective I have. It's literally breaking that stronghold and that, and I do believe it's like spiritual warfare that goes into it, whether you believe in God or not. Like spirits are real, you know. So like it's a stronghold. I think that is kind of like an attack on not just manhood, but more so on what it is to be a man. And it's not always just these three feelings that we're allowed to have. You know, it's being, you know, sad, scared, you know, things like that, and processing that. And in doing that, you're breaking that cycle. So you're raising up the young generation and the generation coming behind you of showing them, hey, this is what it's like to be a man. It's actually more of a man, or you're being more of a man when you're being vulnerable and when you're, you know, processing your feelings in a healthy way and in a safe way with safe people.
Yeah, no, I love that you brought that up. So many good points because spiritual warfare. So do you believe in God?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so just in case I throw something at you, I don't want you to be like, okay, this girl.
No, no.
No, but you're right. It is spiritual warfare. And that's almost a whole nother topic within of itself. But just the fact that there are these things, like you are expected as society to grab these little handful of emotions. It's just a few. And when you go outside of that box, you're weird, or you're doing too much, or
you're soft or weak, or yeah.
Right. And it's like, where does that come from? And I love how you spoke about the next generation, because I mean, I'm not a parent yet, but we're still, you know, showing the next generation how to
Yeah.
be. And I think it's so important to not be so tight or perfect, because how can our kids come to us or speak to us if we're not experiencing the things that they're experiencing? We see it makes us look like we're above them and beyond, and that they don't have it together, and that, you know what I mean? It just gets really weird.
Yeah, and it leaves them up to like how I was, and I think a lot of us, you know, trying to figure it out. And where's the first place we go naturally? It's entertainment or pretty much anything but people that we probably, I won't say should go to, but, you know, maybe think about more so going to. Because I know that was what it was like for me, you know, where it's just like, shoot, I don't know nothing about these feelings and emotions or nothing like that, and everything I see is the same thing. And then when you see it on TV, it's reaffirming that. So it's like, shoot, I guess that's just what it is. Here we go, you know. And now when you get 30, 40, or however old you get, you're trying to have to deal with that and unpack that. You know what I'm saying? Whereas if you could learn it later on, or at least be introduced to the ideal of it, you're saving a lot of trouble and a lot of time, and you're saving a lot of trouble and time for other folks coming up behind you.
I love that, because you know, that's the whole purpose of having chats like this and being able to share this information, so that people don't have to wait until they're, you know, 40 or 50 to get the information, understand like, no, it's all good. Like, we're all going through this thing. We're all
Right.
humans, like the same.
Let's unpack it together, you know?
Please and
Hmm.
thank you. And I always tell people in my videos, it's like, look, I don't have it all together. I'm not here to teach at anyone. I'm growing with, you know, everyone. I know even I'm getting things out of this conversation, because being vulnerable is hard for everyone, especially, like I said, it's so important for us to show that we're strong and that we have it all together. We don't want to be a burden on anybody and all of these things, but it keeps us inauthentic. So, you know, since you do believe in God, how do you feel like spirituality plays a role, you know, in tandem with vulnerability?
I know I can only speak from my like personal experience, but I know for me how it's helped is I've learned. In fact, matter of fact, I think it was like this last weekend where I was like really realizing that a lot of the issues that I have with my relationship with God is a direct reflection on my real life relation. Well, it's all real life, but like physical, the relationships there. That's why, like, you know, if you have a rough relationship with your father, when somebody comes talking about, you know, Heavenly Father, you're like, okay, you already have a preconceived notion of like, okay, this is what it's like. I don't know if I want to trust all that or listen to all that. So I think in unpacking that spiritually, because I went, and I want to keep it short because I could be talking, man. You got to cut me
No,
off
you
because
can talk. We here.
but I went through a phase where and it's a long story, but I'm really gonna keep it short. I went through a phase where I literally just stripped away everything I thought I knew about God, that I've been taught about God, and just started from ground zero. I'm like, look, God, I believe in you still. I know that's real. How can teach me about you, starting from ground zero, stripping away everything I learned. And some of the stuff I learned, whether it's through life or church, other people, it's true, but stripping it away and understanding it for myself And once I did that and got my identity back in God where it was supposed to be for me, that's when I was able to, tap in more to that transparency and really feel what it's like to have a solid foundation and identity in God. So that way I'm not finding it in acting or whatever else I do. Because I went through a phase there where my identity was just always wrapped up in acting. So based on how that went, that's how I was going. And if it was good, great. If it was bad, I was going pretty bad, So finding that, redefining that identity and that relationship helped me then know that, hey, I can be vulnerable. If I can come to God broken and saying, hey, I don't know about this, or I don't believe this, or I feel like this was used for this, and I'm just all over the place. Or sometimes you might even be cussing. I've had prayers sometimes where I'm just like, saying some cuss words up in there, and I didn't get struck down or nothing like that. I just felt like, it's just like, hey, I'm here to listen, be. And then I felt just like, okay, this is what it's like to be vulnerable in a safe environment, in a safe way, in a healthy way, in a conducive way. So now I can take that experience and share it with other people, whether they believe in God or not. That feeling and that intentionality you can take, and that's universal no matter what people believe.
Yeah. What you just said was like so powerful. I'm just like, I could turn this off right now and y'all should be good. Like good. Like that is the realest thing, because I found myself in a similar situation. I remember specifically in 2000, I had a couple of things. 2015, I was feeling some kind of way, but 2017, I was like, all right, I really don't trust men.
Mm.
And then I had to examine that. I'm like, okay, why don't you trust men? And I'm like, oh, well, I don't trust myself. I
Mm.
think, that's the thing. And then when I thought about trusting myself, I thought about, the divinity that lives within me. And I'm like, wow. So what this really comes down to is I don't trust God.
Mm.
And when you talk about vulnerability and being able to bring your broken pieces somewhere, trust me, I don't trust God is not something you want to broadcast to everyone, because it's like, how do you not trust God? It's God.
Yeah.
But to be able to go to God and say, help me work on this distrust that I'm having, that gives him the space to actually do some work. If we
Mm-hmm.
have it all together, we know everything, we know what we're doing, we don't need no help, then if we can't even go to God and get help from the one that created us, how on earth are we going to be able to connect with other people? So I love that you brought that up in relationship to Father, because everything that we do is a reflection of our
Mm-hmm.
relationship with God, like how we show up. So that is like super powerful. I really think that that's the answer right there.
Yeah. My prayer before this meeting went well then.
Yes, I love it. No, that's perfect. No, truly. And I really hope as time goes by, more can understand that on the level where they're diving into things that way. And yeah, that's where the real healing's going to come. With everything going on, I feel like healing is what we need most
Yeah.
right now. Yes, there needs to be changes in our systems and things like that, but ultimately we have to be healed too. Because
Yeah. And I think to kind of backtrack a little bit to what you said earlier about like having everything all put together, I think that's a part of the healing. Not having everything put together, but realizing that you don't have to have everything put together because, and I'd be curious to understand what it's like from your perspective, where I know, and this is pretty universal, no matter if you're male or female as a black person in America, it's always taught, whether it's through people sitting down and telling you or just life experiences, that there's a certain set of rules that you have to play by specifically, and you don't have the room to be having it not all put together or not have everything right. You have to work extra harder to be taken seriously, to not have your validity in question and things like that. So I think once you realize that, especially as a black person, once you realize that, hey, it's okay to not have things put together, not for lack of preparation or doing your homework or making excuses. You do all the stuff you're supposed to do, but even in that, you still don't quite understand, and you just be vulnerable and open up yourself, say, hey, I don't actually know this. Can you show me? Can you teach me? I think that's where that power comes in. And I wonder what it's like from a black woman's perspective, because I know there are some similarities because we're black, but like as a man, even though I have like that much privilege as a black man, it's still privilege to a degree. So I wonder, like, what is it kind of like from your perspective, you think, with that whole like coming into realization that you have to play by a different set of rules and figuring out and realizing that it's okay to not have everything put together all the time. Like how does that?
I mean, honestly, that's something I've struggled with for a long time. I've always pretty much felt like I have to have it all together.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until somewhat recently where I've been comfortable just being like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know. Because I, that vulnerability, like when I shared the definition of it, exposed to the possibility of being attacked, harmed, either
Hmm.
physically or emotionally, sometimes it feels like both. It's like, okay, if I, it could be something as small as not knowing the area or not knowing something. I do feel like I could be physically attacked. I don't worry about being physically attacked, but there's still, even as a woman, a level of vulnerability. Like I used to live in New York. You can't be walking around New York like a little lost
Yeah.
boy.
Yeah. You
Like,
better
I
get
know
with
shit.
it.
Yeah, you got to get with it, and
Hmm.
whatever. I was also the oldest child, so naturally, I kind of just felt like the leader. My sisters were watching me, da 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 da, and I didn't have anybody older than me, or an older sister, or somebody older. So I definitely felt like this is my job. It's my job
Hmm.
to have it all together. It's my job to know, and if you don't know, find out quick.
Right.
Because I don't like that vulnerability. I
Yeah.
don't like feeling like somebody can get over on me, because I feel like no matter where I show up, if they have the opportunity, space, or anything, that it's just so possible. I just hate the way the heartbreak feels. So
Yeah.
I know it can be very challenging. I mean, this is something that I'm literally working on as well. As a woman in the workplace, like I don't be feeling heard sometimes, but it's like,
Hmm.
I'm not in the boys club. I just left a
Right.
job. It was all men in that office. They wouldn't trip it off with nothing I had to say, what I had
Right.
going on. And I don't really like to yell or, so it's just like, man, I got to find me a new place or create one. Create me a space where I feel like I can be, I'm seen, I'm heard, and can be open enough to even share if I don't know anything, or to be
Right.
vulnerable. And when I'm allowed those spaces in any type of leadership I am given, I think it brings me closer to the people that I'm working with, when I can share, like, and then let them shine. If I don't know something and that's your wheelhouse, like, you're
Yeah.
giving
Yeah.
somebody else the opportunity to show up for you. And other people need that. So I'm learning that as well.
Cool. Yeah, I was interested if it was similar, which there is some similarities, but I just wanted to know if there were any differences. So yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very similar. I just think that men have a little bit less space because of the way you guys are trained to, that you have to show up.
Yeah,
Women, when we cry, people are like,
that's
crying.
expected.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like we have more space, I feel like, to have a range of emotions. And I also think, I always ask about brotherhood, because I think we have that with our friendships. We will hop
Hmm.
on the phone in a minute and pour it all out.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, we have no problem doing that, because we understand that we're walking so much of the same paths. But I feel like there's a block when it comes to men, because if you
Hmm.
don't know something, like you said, oh, you're weak, and it's just like, okay, so I'm weak in this area. You gonna help
Help
me
me
or
get
not?
strong. Right.
Yeah, like, what are we doing? So I love that. So let's see. Now that you know more about vulnerability, and you're on your walk and your journey, how can you see it playing a part in your life in various ways where it might bring value? Like, are you seeing it's bringing values to the workplace, or value to other relationships, or your job as an actor?
Yeah, I definitely see it bringing value pretty much. And I know it sounds almost like a cop out, but I really do see it in all aspects of my life. Because when you be vulnerable, I think you actually find a power in it where it's just like, you know what? This is what I got. This is what it is. And this is what you're getting. And because of that comfortability and that confidence, you're getting a more authentic me, in all aspects. And I think, um, the immediate thing or example I can think of in my mind is just my friendships that I have right now, where I'm seeing a lot of value because with a lot of my male friendships, we're in different stages depending on who they are. Some of them they've been hip to this vulnerability stuff. Some are just now getting introduced to it, and others ain't even thought about it. And because of that, it's working kind of twofold, where it's giving me practice to be vulnerable with them And it's also giving them an example of me being vulnerable. Like, hey, if he can do it, I can do it too. You know, saying, hey, bro, I don't know about this, or I feel this type of way, or even a disagreement. Like, you know, you said this, you felt like you came to me sideways. This is how I feel about it, man to man. Let me tell you how I feel about it. Let's work through this versus just, you know, kind of sitting and being like, yeah, I don't mess with him no more, or whatever, you know, like talk about it. You know what I mean? So I think, did that answer it? Because sometimes I'll be tangenting.
No, 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 that's good. Because it gives direct example to, that's what I kind of wanted to know, like, how are you seeing, how is it showing up in your life? And that
Mhm.
was a perfect example. Now, have you ever felt rejected after like making an effort to be vulnerable?
Oh yeah, and I'm trying not to look at the little comments because I get distracted. But I see my brother Sam on here, man. He's a good example of what I was just talking about. Of
Love
just
it.
come, he's one of my brothers that I can come to and say, hey man, you know I'm struggling with this, and at the same time he can come to me and check me. You know, it's like, hey Frank, you acting kind of out of pocket. You know,
Wow.
So that was a little tangent, but I see my bro on there, so I just want to shout him out real quick.
What's up,
But
Sam?
I'm so sorry. What was the question?
No, I was saying, like, have you ever had a moment of vulnerability and then felt rejected? Like, wow, that was
Oh.
ill received or
Mhm.
anything?
Yeah, for sure. Because that was one of the things I was nervous about when I first started trying to get into this whole unpacking what vulnerability is. Is for most dudes, is you don't want to get clowned by your boys. That's like, this dude over here, da 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 da. Da. You don't want to get clowned, but once you get over that, then you can get past it. And once you get past it, that's when the growth starts. So I definitely felt that rejection before. You get clowned, you get roasted, or whatever. You get over it. But like I said, once you get over it, that's when the growth can start. So yeah, yeah.
That's so funny. Well, guys are so like that. Y'all's friends have so much influence over
Yep.
the way you function, and y'all do not like to be clowned, but y'all stay roasting each other. It's so
Hmm.
funny. It's different. Me and my girls, I don't think we function like that. We don't just be up there like, man, you all, whatever, just
Got the
going at
hand
each
going.
other. Yeah, that's so funny, but it's what makes us different. I love it. So, what's one of the things that scares you most when it comes to sharing how you feel or being in a space where you have to be honest about your feelings? What scares you the most about that?
It used to be a bunch of stuff, if I'm being honest, but
Uh,
more recently, um, I think because it's actually a twofold answer because it's directly attacking something that I'm unpacking now in real life, which is perception. I don't necessarily care about perception as far as like how others view me like that, but when you're in a predominantly white space or around predominantly white people, being one of few or if not the only black person, being vulnerable and transparent in those spaces, it makes you wonder, or it makes me think of like, okay, if I don't know this one specific thing, or if I be vulnerable and say I don't know this one specific thing, now my intelligence is going to be under question, or my validity, or ooh, he ain't got it all figured out. He don't know. Whereas in my other white counterparts, your peers may not be questioned in that way. So I think with that, that's kind of where I'm at as far as like, because I'm still unpacking that. Like I can truthfully say that I can be in a space, any space, don't matter white, black, or otherwise, and still be my authentic self and be confident in that. But it's still in the back of my head where it's like, okay, if I don't know this one thing, or in the moment, I'm like, oh shoot, I don't know. Is this white guy over here gonna think, oh yep, I figured, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I'm still, trying to process my way through that.
yeah, as you say it, I mean, it sounds like you're speaking my language. I'm definitely like that as well. I don't want to. Sometimes it's hard to show up fully because yeah, if you say something wrong or it sounds stupid or you don't know what you're talking about or you
Hmm.
just don't know, sometimes the perception and the reactions that you get from other people can be extremely uncomfortable.
Hmm.
But what do you think is a good way to combat that? Because I'm thinking in my mind, you can have confidence. Confidence is like, I know I'm good, I know
Hmm.
this, I'm out here, but I think it takes probably a little bit more courage to
Hmm.
show up because I feel like courage says, even if I do mess up, even if I do say something dumb, even if I do get it wrong, I tried and I said it
Yeah.
anyway, or I stepped
Yeah.
forward, or,
Yeah.
I guess it would have to be courage. I'm up here answering my own questions, but
No,
unless
I
you
mean,
have
I
a different
think,
thought.
I think I mean, you said it for sure, but I think what can combat that is what we kind of was talking about earlier, where it's just like getting those reps in, getting that practice in with your brotherhood or sisterhood of being
Mm,
like, hey, I'm practicing being vulnerable now. So that way it becomes a habit. It becomes comfort. Like with me with acting, I'm really good at being a character. That's what I'm paid to do. But when I need to be just myself in front of the camera, that is a skill to be vulnerable, so that's why, like, my I'm Gonna Be Frank series, I started that back in like 2018. That was just practice for me to, be myself and be comfortable in front of the camera, because it's easy to be a role or a character, but to be yourself, that's a whole different thing. And talking the way you talk or having the mannerisms that you do, not trying to switch it up because, whoever's listening, just being yourself. So I think that's a way, not the way, but I think that's a way to actively work towards that.
yeah, and I love that you put it that way and likened it to acting, because that's kind of what's happening in real life. When you
Mm-hmm.
talk about a character, it's such a wall, it's a mask,
Mm-hmm.
it's a safe space, because it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I did that because that's what the character would do,
Mm-hmm.
or that's why I said this, or the mannerisms, or whatever it is. And I feel like a lot of people are carrying the weight of playing a role
Mm-hmm.
in real life and being
Yeah.
comfortable sitting behind that so they don't have to show up.
I
And
tell people all the time, man,
yeah,
like, acting, everybody does it. Acting is for everybody, but it ain't for everybody. Or anybody can do it, but it's not for everybody. I don't mean to
yeah.
cut you off, but that just reminded me. Yeah.
No, 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 you're good. This is a conversation. That's true. And, I think, so, I don't know the exact quote. I think Jim Carrey said it, something about, people are depressed because our bodies are tired of carrying around who we're not, or
Mm,
we're too busy pretending to be something we're not. And then the weight that puts on us makes us depressed. And I
mm-hmm.
definitely believe that, because it's almost impossible. Even when we go back to talking about the relationship with God and how we pray, I've been very candid too. Sometimes, I know people have different perceptions of me, but
Mm-hmm.
when I go to God, I'm raw. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
this is not, this is what we doing, this is what we not doing. I need help. Like, I can't, I'll be on my face about it. But yeah, there is something that kind of makes you feel like you can't show up like that in the real world, because it might be too much, or might be too real, or people are going to
Yeah.
judge you and they don't want to, you know, we're just so judgy. We're just so
Yeah.
judgy these
Yeah.
days.
No,
Like,
for real. Real talk. Yeah.
yeah, everybody's tiptoeing.
Yeah, and I think, and what you were just saying too, I think, again, I kind of sound like a broken record, but it's practice. It's all about practice. So when we come to God like that, it gives us practice to be that way. Because I think at the end of the day, man, it always comes down to, I think, honestly, yeah, I think it comes down to identity. Where you find your identity is kind of how you maneuver through life and go through life. So yeah, yeah, yeah,
Identity. I love that. That's been on my mind a lot, especially with everything going on with the Black Lives Matter, all of the
yeah.
talk about racism that's been coming up. The first thing that I was hearing in my private space was power. I want us
Hmm.
to walk in our power. And
Hmm.
I do think collectively as a people, just being African American, not all of us, not some of us, not all the time, but sometimes I feel like we have lost our identity. And I think it does directly go back to, I got to look for my identity in God. I got to
Hmm.
look to who God says I am. If
Hmm.
he knew me before I was formed in my mother's womb, then who am I going to ask about who I am?
Yeah,
And when I learn more about that, it allows me to show up more in that. And I just
yeah.
kind of feel like we've gotten away from God a little bit when it comes to that.
Yeah, I agree, and I think, when you when you start to tap back into, God, and who your identity is within Him, I really think that's where that confidence comes from, and that self worth and self assurance. Because I went through a dark phase, and Sam, he was one of the brothers that helped me kind of work through it. Where I went through a dark phase where, like, my whole identity was just so wrapped up in acting. It was so wrapped up in acting. So, after a while, I was thinking of like, shoot, is this something I'm really called to do? Because, I'm not booking or I'm not doing this or not doing that. And literally, like, I forgot, I think it was Michael Todd's sermon where he had like the seats of like who's on the different seats of your heart. And, God's supposed to be at the throne. Acting definitely switched up there real quick and didn't even realize it. And because of that, I went through a real dark phase, man, where, I was just questioning everything. And thankfully, I was able to make my way through that and process my way through that. But that identity is, and even if you don't believe in God, I really truly believe that regardless of what you believe in, you have to not find your identity in what you do. Your worth and your identity, your self-worth is in who you are, not what you do. And we have to, no matter who or what you believe in, I think that's something everybody universally needs to hold on to. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And that's such a timely message for this time. And I definitely went through that, I would say, in 2008
Hmm.
when the market crashed. I was
Mm.
in real
Yeah.
estate at that time. And it wasn't until that was all taken away that I understood that I was placing my value on what I did, what I had, who I was in the corporate world, things like that. I didn't even realize it. I
Yeah.
had no idea. I thought I was just doing
It's
the right
subtle.
thing.
It's subtle. It's subtle.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's subtle and it's so loud at the same time.
Hmm.
Because if you miss it, this is another reason why I can tell during this time of the pandemic that I was prepared for this in 2008, because
Mm.
I'm okay with impermanence now, because I learned that I have no choice, because I'm always going to be me, but what I do is going to shift. How much I make is going to shift.
Hmm.
And I'm okay with that because my identity is not tied up in it anymore. Like,
Yeah.
that is powerful,
Yeah.
because so
It's
many people, feel so down and hurt about things that they don't have because they're tying their worth to it.
and I think too, because I want to be careful about how I go about saying it, but with the pandemic being just terrible, it's terrible. People have lost lives. It's truly just a horrendous thing that's happened. But even in it, I believe the opportunity has been and still is there to reconnect with God. Like, I'm not saying God allowed it to happen because he wanted all these people to die. It's just so you or me can, reconnect with him. There's other reasons that we just don't understand that's deeper than we could ever understand. But one of the things I can see from it is that it's allowing people who are believers to kind of get reconnected with God, and people who never heard of him to, get curious about it, because again, the effects of the pandemic has been terrible for people, for everybody. But some of the things I can see that were, I'm hesitant to say positive, but I just don't have a better word to use right now. I'll say positive is that it, in a way, stripped down idols in a way. Like, for some people, sports, and that's not a judgment on anybody, but, 'cause in some ways, sports was an idol, or different things were idols that literally got paused and shut down, where it's just said, hey, like, the world is on pause right now. This is an opportunity and a chance and a time to get curious about God or reconnect with God. I think, I hope I said that in a way that wasn't, but that's just kind of where I'm at process wise in like this moment. So I hope that didn't, you know.
No, you're good. I was like that, and I still am. I do want to say, of course, the coronavirus, it's terrible. People have gone through
Yeah.
terrible things, but I also like to share. I think it was Wayne Dyer, and I don't have the exact words correctly, but he was speaking about, children, maybe that are starving in another
Hmm.
country. As much as we can acknowledge it and work towards, whatever we feel called to do to help,
Hmm.
feeling sad about it is not going to change it, help it, or raise the vibration of those around you. So I do think it's okay to acknowledge the pain and everything that's going on in
You
the
have to. Yeah.
pandemic. But we are still alive, honey. So we still got our lessons to learn, our
Yeah.
things to show up for, our purpose to live through. So I think it's totally okay to acknowledge that for what it is without taking away from the bad parts, because there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I
Yeah.
do think God was very intentional about this time and
Hmm.
this
Yeah.
season, because we was all shouting 2020 is our year, the year of
Yeah.
clarity. Okay. And this is really that.
Yeah.
This is a year of clarity. And what I think we as a people need to stop so much maybe running from, and this is why the vulnerability is so important, is healing and walking in purpose and finding out the depths of ourselves is
Hmm.
not easy, fun, cute work.
And it'll never be over until you're dead.
So,
Not to be morbid, but for real.
correct. So we
Yeah.
really got to get used to it. And I think this catapulted it. It's like getting kicked out the nest. Like, well, go
Hmm.
fly. You
Yeah.
want the clarity? Go find it, because it ain't
Yeah.
in the job. It ain't in the sports. It ain't in everything that you made an idol out of.
Yeah.
And again, and I think it's okay to say that, because even what I just shared about my old job and what I was thinking
Hmm.
about how I was showing up in the real estate market, I had no idea I was doing it until it was
Yeah.
taken away from me.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was miserable. I was depressed. I thought God was mad at me. I was
Hmm.
sad. I had no idea how to process. I'm showing up. I'm a good person. I'm doing a good job. I love my family. And now I'm losing my job, losing this. I'm broke. I can't find,
Like, what did
like,
I do wrong, God? What did I do?
what
Yeah.
did you do wrong?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to learn it had nothing to do with that was the best lesson I could have ever gotten. And it
Yeah.
hurt.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Heck yeah, dude. Because you're just like, dang, I thought this was it. I thought this was it. But yeah, life is, no matter, again, no matter what you believe in, life is a journey,
Yeah.
and it'll take you on it.
Whether you want to go
For
or not,
real.
if you're here, you're going.
Hmm.
So, we were both able to share like some of the things from our past, but where do you think the inhibitions, especially with men, to be vulnerable start from? Is it from when you're a child, or do you remember a specific moment where you felt like, oh, I'm not doing that again, or I'm not saying that
Hmm.
again, or I can't be like this?
I think it's depending on the relationship. It happened in different moments for me. I know, because it's like, again, I can only speak from my perspective, and I'm from the hood, and that's the thing I find universal. No matter what hood you grew up in, there's gonna be some similarities, no matter where at in the country. But most hood folks, when we're raised, we're taught both through experience and through fam and people telling you, hey, don't trust nobody. Half time you can't even trust family. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't trust nobody. And me, the way God wired me, I've always been, kind of the benefit of the doubt person, where I'm just like, okay, this person, I hear what, my brother told me, or my mama told me, or my daddy told me, whoever told me. But, I want to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. And once you do that so much so that what you've been taught is proven to be right, then that's when you get that, like, you start boxing people. Like, whereas it's kind of like, all right, this person, they did this, I trusted them or whatever. Can't trust them no more. Can't trust them no more. In the same way with, like, romantic relationships, same thing, where you go all in and then you get done wrong or whatever the case is. And then it's just like, all right, I'm not trusting nobody. I'm not dating, I ain't dating no more acting as my wife. Cause I did that phase too. I was like, acting my wife straight up. Forget all that. Nope, I'm cool. I'm cool on it. You listen to your Chris Brown, Deuces and all this stuff, getting you to the left, all your little theme songs. You're like, this is my song. But I think for sure that's for me. For me, that's where it came from. For me, through just both being taught by people that cared about me, and through just my life experiences, where that trust barrier comes up, where you just like, I ain't trusting nobody as far as I can throw them. Period.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that comes from, for me, and I think
Yeah.
for a lot of people too.
That's really, that's a good perspective. That's a good point to have. Yeah, and I was definitely going to ask about relationships, because I feel like this is a little bit of a difference between men and women. I do feel
Hmm.
like women, we'll get our little hearts broken, but we'll pick back up and
Hmm.
we'll love again. We will try again. And
Mm.
I feel like a lot of the times with men, it does maybe happen once or twice. Or maybe you grab the wrong partner at the wrong time or whatever it is. And y'all just be swearing off women altogether. Like,
I think I know the answer. I think I
Yeah,
know the
what's
answer.
that about?
Like soon, I knew where you was going with it, but I wanted to listen first before I jumped in there. I really think it's as simple as this. The reason why women are able to move on and trust a lot easier is because it was allowed through society for them to be in tune with their emotions and their feelings and process it. And then so in that way, y'all got it way more figured out on a lot of stuff. But you know, y'all got it a lot more figured out when it comes to dealing with emotions. And because you can process that with your friends and you know in relationships, y'all just on a different level, like intellectually and in I heard you said earlier, emotional IQ. Y'all have a higher emotional IQ, whereas dudes, we playing catch up. You know, we're learning how to deal with our feelings. So, for example, you know, if I date somebody and she did me wrong or whatever the case is, and I dated another person, same thing. And after that, I swore it off. I'm like, I ain't doing it no more. Period. I'm gonna stay single all my life, whatever, solo dolo. Um, because I feel these different emotions. If I'm being honest, I'm feeling, you know, maybe some insecurity or hurt or whatever. But because I don't know how to process that and work through that, it's just like, all right, bet, done. You know what I'm saying? And it usually comes out in toxic bad ways. It comes out in toxic bad ways where, you know, if we're being honest with ourselves as men, it's not healthy. Where it's just like, F that B, F that, H, this. I'm trying to not say no bad words or nothing, but y'all know what I'm talking about.
Y'all know what we're talking about.
You've heard the songs, but yeah, and that's the mindset and the mentality, and this is kind of going off on a tangent. I can feel it, but I feel like it's kind of related. This is where sometimes that plays into how we see women, not necessarily as objects or anything, but it's just like anytime you see a certain type of woman that may look a certain way, act a certain way, you're already thinking, I already know, and then you thinking all these bad, negative things, which is not good. And that's why I think there's also an issue with men stepping in and protecting women, not necessarily saying they need to be protected, but in harmful, hurtful situations because they're already thinking like, oh, well, she probably said this or did this, or, that kind of stuff. So that was a little bit of a tangent. I think I answer it. I don't.
No, you did. No,
You
I
gotta you gotta keep me.
understand. Yeah. No, you are doing a great job. You are really saying some powerful things. And it's interesting because two things popped up for me. One, of course, we as women, I do think we get emotional intelligence faster because we're
Hmm.
given permission in a
Hmm.
different way. But I also remember having no clue about it. And it did stunt my growth in areas. But it kind of goes back to your iron sharpens iron. And
Yeah.
it's not to downplay any of the friends I had in that season. We were all growing together. But I don't know. Some of them did, some of them didn't. But I don't even know we had the real tools to talk to each other to really figure out how to pick ourselves up out of heartbreak. So,
Hmm.
and then that's when you get it. Like, dudes ain't this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
care. I'm going to just
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. Hmm.
I'll do it
I don't need
myself.
nobody, no nothing. I don't need nothing from nobody. I'm good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
we don't know better, and then you see that's kind of how it comes out for us. And bringing it back to vulnerability, I know for me in a season where I was really concerned with that type of stuff, you
Hmm.
do feel it, especially if I'm a feeling person. So you feel if you show up a certain way, wear your hair a certain way, put an outfit or whatever it is, that because of what other people have gone through, you may now be perceived a
Yeah.
certain way.
Yeah.
But then you start trying to outperform that perception.
Hmm.
So it just gets so messy
Yeah. Yeah.
when we're not clear and grounded and anchored in our identity, which is kind of like the anchor of this conversation along with vulnerability.
Yeah.
And it messes it all up. And that's why
It
we're having
does.
a conversation.
Yeah, but we need to have these conversations and continue to have them because I really think that with the vulnerability, going back to vulnerability, I really think once we learn to do that, it helps us create empathy and experience empathy because once we as individuals can, unpack and process and work through, different emotions or feelings, and get filled up and be healthy in that way, then we can be that for other people. So a lot of these different things, like if we take the race thing, for example, if other people were truly sitting down and listening for understanding, not to argue a point, but to understand, you'll realize like you have so many things in common with somebody else, and that can be the end on listening and trying to gain empathy. You know what I'm saying? Like you can, I can guarantee you at least, no, I can sit down right now across somebody who's, you know, Grand Wizard in the KKK and talk to them, and I can guarantee we got three things in common off top. Period.
Yeah.
You know, you like to be respected, you like to be loved, you like living life. That's three things right there. Can we connect on that? And then from there, have more discussion, more conversation. You know what I'm saying? You still might not walk away agreeing with pretty much maybe nothing, but at least you can understand where that person is coming from and have empathy, not necessarily saying excusing any type of trifling behavior, you know what I'm saying? But at least understanding where you say, okay, I don't agree with this person, but I at least understand where they're coming from. We agree to disagree, but I don't, I'm walking away just a little bit knowing a little bit more and learning that this is just one individual. This ain't everybody, you know? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I love how you said that. And empathy plays such a huge part in everything. And I think if we could take that advice and be more empathetic, there'd be so much more room to invite other people to be the same. And
Mm-hmm.
now I definitely believe in that, even with these conversations, the events I do, whatever it is, to create space for people to be who they are. Because we
Mm-hmm.
actually need people to be all of who they are. If, you know, we're talking about God and purpose and identity, worthiness, and
Mm.
how you show up, we need to encourage people to be exactly who they are without crapping on them for their beliefs, where they are in life, what they want to do, or any opinions that they may have.
Because
I
there's a
think it's
reason.
very
There's a
respectful.
reason why you credit the way you are. Like, I feel um, like I'll use my life for an example. Um, you know, there was a time where I feel like I'm not qualified to be here or do this role or whatever the case is. But knowing how God made me and wired me as this goofy dude, that qualifies me, period. No matter how good or bad I do an audition or however, you know, I mess up something or whatever the case is, like I'm qualified because God made me qualified as is. Now, that's not to say you don't need to, I don't need to do more work and continue to grow, but how I'm wired is for a reason and it's for a purpose. And that qualifies me, that alone. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think we should celebrate that about ourselves. Somebody said, find things to celebrate over things to fight over while not
Hmm.
dismissing your values or boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very well
Facts.
said.
Facts. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's okay. You know, I that's fine, you know.
Yeah.
And this is a good thing to bring up too, especially again when it comes to these current events. There's a lot of division over who people want to vote for, who they want to give
Yeah.
money to, who they want to. And I know it can get really hairy because we're talking about livelihoods, we're talking about life, we're talking about, you know, all of these very deep things that create the human experience. But I also think if we can invite this understanding, empathy, and vulnerability, if we can invite in understanding and empathy, the
Hmm.
vulnerability will follow. And underneath that, I think we'll find some understanding with each other, even if we
Absolutely.
don't agree.
Absolutely. Because that's the thing. We shouldn't, if I'm sitting down having a conversation with you, the goal shouldn't be to prove a point. The goal shouldn't be to try to convert you over to my side or vice versa. The goal should be simply to listen and understand.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And
And
isn't
maybe you
that
walk
what we
away and
all
agree
want?
on something. Yeah.
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 No, I love that. Um, so here's a question I have for you.
Mhm.
Has playing a role or putting up a facade ever kept you from a deeper relationship or getting a job that you wanted?
I would say yes to a deeper relationship, but no to getting the job I want.
Okay.
For the relationship part, um, I can honestly say, thankfully, thank God that uh, whatever facade that I did put up, it wasn't a full facade. It was like a half facade, where it's not necessarily saying I'm trying to pretend to be somebody, but more so of like, okay, this is a part of me that I'm just gonna pretend like don't exist. The rest of the stuff I'm gonna amplify, but this part I'm just pretend like it don't exist. And it kind of ties into the acting one too. I'm trying to keep them straight in my mind.
Yeah.
But what relationship, because of like hurt or experience, it only allows you to go so far. So like if I have a relationship with one of my real good, dude friends, and because he is the third person that I tried to be extremely intentional with, like invite into that intimate level of me of like, you're somebody I call a brother. So I should be able to call on you if I need something, or I should be able to talk to you if I need something, or just be like, hey, dog, I messed up. I did X, Y, and Z. And because the last time I tried it, it didn't go so well. Now going into this one, you start seeing telltale signs, versus taking them as an individual. But because of the past experience, you have a telltale sign. So when they do one or two things that do that, you're out of your mind. It shifts real quick. Like, oh, this is that type of person. I can't trust them. I'm cool with you, but you ain't getting no further than right here. Period. Um, like right there. Like I remember one time, uh, there was a scenario or a metaphor somebody created where like your life or relationships or something like that is like a house, and only very few people get up to the attic. Some people just on the sidewalk, some people at the front door or on the porch. And a lot of folks, for me, because I went through a real, and I'm still tearing away that a little bit, where I don't trust nobody, so like a lot of folks is on the porch of my life, like, or maybe even the sidewalk. Like you still like, you cool, but like, don't cross over
Yeah,
there. Like you good, bro. Stay, you good. How you doing? All right.
right.
So with relationships, for sure, I've definitely experienced um, that type of roadblock where I wish, and then the opportunity is always there no matter what, to change or be more open. It's always there. But that definitely kind of stunted that for sure with some relationships I've had in the past.
Yeah.
And as far as acting goes, and it still kind of ties into this. When I first started acting in 2011, I didn't know nothing about nothing. So I was just like, all right, I'm gonna learn. And I decided to, I decided to go seek formal training at a university. And as I went in there, since I didn't know nothing about it, I'm like, whatever they tell me to do, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go with it to a degree. I still got my boundaries and stuff like that. But like, if they like tell me this is your type and this is the kind of roles you should be going for, I'm like, okay, bet, boom, I'll do it. So I'll say that with acting, it didn't necessarily keep me from getting the job I wanted to get, but I think it definitely prevented me or didn't allow me the opportunity to go out for certain roles or jobs that I probably could have done or should have done. But because I was stuck with the perception of like, this is my type, this is what it is, I kind of shut that off. Like, so now I'm kind of having to go back and do that because my type is more of like the traditional classic, good guy, wholesome dude coming in, kicking down doors, good cop, all that kind of stuff, which is good. And it served me well. But I'm also super goofy. I'm super goofy, but I hit that part because I'm just like, okay, these people, when I first started acting, told me that this is what my type is. So this goofy stuff ain't gonna get me work. So I'm gonna have to push that to the side. So that's a part of me that I didn't fully embrace like that. And I had one of my homeboys actually tell me, he was just like, when I played Martin Luther King one time, he's like, bro, you be playing all these serious roles, but you just goofy as than a mug, man. Why you playing these goofy, these silly, or these serious roles? And I'm like, that's just what they told me. And it's
Right.
not saying it was a lie. It was like,
Yeah.
that stuff served me well, and that was my type. But that's just a part of the picture, not the full picture. So, yeah.
I love that. And I imagine it's going to take some level of vulnerability for you to go out and show up in a more of a Will Smith vibe or Fresh
Hmm.
Prince, I should say.
Yeah.
He did the whole spectrum. And
Oh,
then, yeah.
with Will Smith, I remember hearing his interview. I think on the Breakfast Club one time. I can't remember where, but I think it was the Breakfast Club where he was just saying. And when I heard him say it, I was just sitting there like, "Oh my gosh, brother is spitting wisdom. Y'all better listen." Well, I'm just like, he's basically just like, I think he's like 50 now or something like that. And he was just like, I went through my whole career doing stuff that was good. It was fun and everything. But now I'm doing like, when he did Aladdin and stuff like that. He's like, now I'm doing stuff that I want to do that's fun. And I don't care about people saying, oh, why he doing that? Why he doing this? Why he doing that? I don't care about all that stuff no more. I'm going to do what's fun and still have the responsibility of like knowing like, okay, like for me, for example, I believe in artistic responsibility, meaning that not everything has to be, a Selma or when they see us or anything serious like that. But as an artist, no matter if it's acting or sports or whatever, as an artist, you have a platform, you have a following, and people will gravitate towards you. So you have to be responsible in the body of work that you're creating. At least that's just my opinion. So I want to continue to keep doing those types of roles, but also there's nothing wrong with doing a fun role here and there, you know what I'm saying? Or take a whole year doing fun stuff. So yeah, hearing Will Smith talk about that, like I was just like, he just saved me about 10 years of trouble. And he saved everybody else about 10 or 20 years of trouble if they paying attention to, especially actors. I was just like, yeah, that's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, and when you look at a catalog of what Will Smith has accomplished, and it's like,
Hmm.
oh, this dude has or had insecurities about this and is double
Hmm.
thinking himself, and he's been a blockbuster, this multimillionaire families, but like he got all this stuff going on and still questions himself, still
Hmm.
questions his past, still questions different aspects of himself, and will they be judged,
Hmm.
and all of these things. And I'm so glad, but him sharing that alone is what I mean is so powerful about the responsibility that we have to show up in our fullness, to be
Yeah, he was being
vulnerable.
vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
be who we are, because he blessed you and he really did save you 10 years, like a whole
Literally.
decade,
Literally. Yeah.
because he was willing to show up and share. And I really think that that is like,
That's the key. That's what it's all about. That
yeah,
right there. That's why we be vulnerable. That's why we search to be vulnerable, because we're helping ourselves and we're helping others. It's that simple. It's I won't say it's that simple, but it's that
but
simple.
right. It's simple, simple, but complicated, but very simple. The
Hmm.
idea is simple. The work is complicated. Um, but it still needs to be done. So it's all
Yeah.
good. I really think this was such a powerful conversation. And I think we kind of had a full circle moment with it, not only talking about vulnerability, but why it's important, where we get lost, where the inhibitions are. And I'm so grateful for your minds and your time in this conversation. But before we go, do you want to share like one last nugget, or do you want to like let people know? Um, let's talk about I'm a be frank. I saw some of the I love it. It's so fun and cute and you got it all together. So how can people like join in on that, and what do you have going on with that project?
Yeah. Basically, like I said, it's just something I started to, work on finding my voice in front of the camera, being myself. And I just talk about random. It's first started off with me just talking about random stuff that I want to talk about. And I still do that, but now I'm trying to get it more community involved. So like when I post the videos, I always say like, let me know in the comments what y'all want me to talk about. Like I'll talk about anything. There's some things that, I'm ignorant of and I still need to study on and learn. And I'm not gonna take up the space talking about something I don't need to be talking about. But stuff that I do, feel comfortable talking about or want to, unpack in real time with folks, put it in the comments and let me know. So yeah, it's just something I'm doing. It's something I'm doing to try to help folks, man. Because like I love, that's something I'm really passionate about, is inspiring people and like coaching people and stuff. So yeah, it just gives me the platform to do it.
I love that. You're such an amazing man. I hope you feel very I hope you feel great about your journey and where you're headed and how far you've come. And, I hope you take the rest of the day to acknowledge, your brilliance and the work that you've done on yourself, because it definitely shows and you absolutely are a light. And I'm just so happy to have had you on King Speak, because you are a king level man, and just to hear you speak and share. Yeah, we're grateful. You did that.
Man, I'm grateful for having like to being on here, because when you first like, because I watched the last one too. Like I grew up watching Flex, so I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh man. And then when you asked me, I was like, oh shoot, I'm about to be on the same platform as Flex. Oh shoot, I don't know about all that, man. That's like last night. I was getting ready to inbox you like, so you got them questions yet? So I could start like looking at. But I was like, I ain't gonna do that. I ain't gonna do that. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait. Just. But yeah,
That's funny.
so yeah, I appreciate this and providing the space for me to come on and talk and be vulnerable. You know.
Yes, I love it. You're amazing. Well, we'll definitely have to stay in touch. This thing is going to time out. It's got like 30 seconds. But yeah, and so you're on, I'm going to put where to find you, but where can we
Mhm.
find I'm a Be Frank? Is it on Instagram and YouTube, or just
It's
Instagram?
on everything: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Vimeo, all that, all that.
Okay, perfect. So y'all hear him, go in the comments and, give him some discussion topics. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be all up in your business.
Please do.
Put some comments in there. But thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and let's stay in touch.
Please, yeah, absolutely.
All
And I'm
right.
glad to
Thank you
come on
guys for
anytime.
watching.
Oops, knock my earphones out.
That's okay.
All right.
All right. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Peace.